Greetings, humans. Welcome back to Sci-Fi Punks, where we like to talk all things sci-fi, movies, comics, video games, novels. If it's sci-fi, let's talk about it. Today, I want to do another book review. I'm going to review this behemoth right here, Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, written back in... Oh no, I gotta check. I have not checked yet. Written back in 1985 by Orson Scott Card. Ender's Game is basically one of the most popular science fiction novels ever published. It's on pretty much every single one of those top 10 science fiction novel lists that you can find on the internet. And for good reason. It's one of those things in life, you know, when you go through life and you hear about, oh, you got to check this out, you got to check out this show, you got to check out this book, and everyone hypes it up, and then it never really lives up to the hype. Well, Ender's Game does live up to the hype. That said, I have a couple really small criticisms. I have to have at least a couple. It's not a perfect novel, but it's pretty fucking close. I do really like Ender's Game. It actually has the rare honor of being one of the few books that I have read 3 times. You see, I am a bit of a mongoloid. I'm a very slow reader. In fact, I failed the very first grade because I couldn't figure out reading. So reading's always been a struggle for me, so it's a big deal when I read a book 3 times. Orson Scott Card, I haven't read anything else by him. It's the only novel I've ever read by him. I should check out more, though, because I do really like his style. It's not hard science fiction, though. This is not a hard sci-fi novel. This is about the characters. It's a smart science fiction novel, though. It doesn't do anything fantastical with its crazy sci-fi lore. It's pretty down to earth. It doesn't go out of its way to over-explain its science fiction machinations. For instance, there is a thing in this book called the Ansible. It basically allows for communication between 2 points at the speed of light. It's this magical device, and they explain that it's necessary for the plot of the story, but they don't get into how it works. They don't need to. A lesser author probably would have felt like they needed to get into how the Ansible works. I feel like if I was writing this novel, I would have felt pressured to at least give some sort of pseudo-science fiction explanation for the physics and the mechanics of the Ansible and how it functions. But Orson Scott Card was smart. He did not feel like he needed to do that here. He just says, oh, we have a device called the Ansible, and it lets us do this really cool thing where we can communicate across the galaxy at the speed of light. And that was a smart choice. There's a bunch of stuff in this book like that where it's not science fiction fantasy, but it doesn't bother going into hard sci-fi. It knows where to pull its punches and knows what kind of book it is. And I think that's why this book has had such staying power, is that the book knows exactly what it's trying to do. It's very well thought out. It's one of those, it's like the novel Dune, where you actually can't believe how good it is sometimes. You think that the author must be some sort of genius to pull it off. The story of Ender's Game is a very simple story, but it's got so many layers. It's so deep. It's a very character-driven story, and the characters are all wonderful. The character of Ender himself, like, some people might want to criticize him for being a little bit of, I don't know, he's almost a non-character. He doesn't actually have a lot of personality. The character of Ender almost does kind of come off as a generic protagonist, but that's the point. The character of Ender wants to have a personality. He really wants to be his own person. The whole book is about him trying to find who he really is and how he should be in this world. But the other characters in the novel, the commanders at the academy that he's going to, are deliberately trying to beat that out of him. They want him to be a generic, boring person that they can mold to their will because they need him. They need his abilities to help them defeat the buggers, the alien threat. And the buggers themselves also could be considered a fairly generic concept. They're just, bugs from outer space, big aliens that are bugs. And yes, we have seen that a million times before this book and a million times since. And you could say, oh yeah, the buggers are a bit of a generic idea, but the way that they're portrayed in this book is really unique. I love the idea of the buggers and how they basically communicate completely psychically to the point where they're almost one singular mind. And because of that, they don't understand us. They don't understand humans and how we're individuals. They physically cannot comprehend that we have our own minds, and they don't even have their own language. They've never developed writing, and they've never developed language because they haven't needed to. They can communicate completely psychically as one mind, and that makes them so alien to us that they just simply do not understand that we are also sentient beings. They don't think it's possible. So that's why we go to war with the buggers, and that's a really cool concept, is that they are just they're so beyond our level of communication that we just don't know what to do other than kill each other. That's a great launching off point, and it really makes the buggers an interesting antagonist. So here's my biggest criticism with the novel. A lot of this interesting stuff, this interesting lore, doesn't show up till near the end of the book. The middle of the book, most of the book, is actually just Ender at the battle school, where he's playing basically space laser tag in these zero gravity rooms. And that's most of the book. And there's a reason for that, because basically the commanders at the academy are trying to make Ender learn strategy and see what kind of commander he can be on his laser tag teams. This is kind of where my only real criticism is, because first of all, the book spends too much time at the academy. There's too many laser tag games. I don't feel like it's that important to the final resolution of the story to focus so much on his laser tag skills. The thing is, it also feels like this was almost two different concepts smashed together. Like, Orson Scott Card thought about a story involving laser tag zero gravity battles, and then he also thought of this alien invasion story, and then he decided to kind of mash them together. And that seems to be what we got here, and it works really well. It does make sense, but it just seems a little strange to me that the Earth military would decide to find their best commander to lead their armies against the buggers by watching kids play laser tag. It's almost the same as like the captain of an NHL hockey team gets recruited to command the Navy or something like that. It just seems a little arbitrarily, a little strange, the link between being a good captain of a laser tag team to commanding a fleet of spaceships. It's a little bit of a strange connection. I know that the idea is that they build strategy and how you command your troops and all that stuff, but it's a little disjointed, if you ask me, just a little bit. But that's my only real criticism. The end of this novel, the last 30 pages or so, is some of the best science fiction I've ever read in my life. I kind of wish more of the book was what you got in the last 30 pages, because the stuff that takes place on Earth is also really interesting. Ender's siblings, Valentine and Peter, are two of the most interesting characters in science fiction. They're these young kids, the ages of preteens or something like that. And they're so intelligent that they manage to use the internet to influence the whole world. They basically become, the first super trolls on the internet. And the concept of the internet is here in this book. Before everybody had the internet, this was a very early concept of the internet, and it's in this book, and it's very, very accurate. Orson Scott Card was really, really ahead of his time in this thinking about how the internet would even work. So it's really cool to see here and read in this novel. So yeah, beyond that, I don't know. I don't have much else to say about Ender's Game. It's a fantastic novel. It's seriously one of my favorite novels I've ever read in my life. I probably will read it again one day. And I wish I had something more interesting to say, a better hot take I could give you about this novel, but I can't. It is as good as people say it is. That's all for the Sci-Fi Punks today. All hail Megatron.